Yo, what is up guys? Delboy here, aka Blue Collar Sports TV. Hopefully you guys are doing well. If you're new here, smash that like, hit subscribe, all of that good stuff. So, a rather interesting triple header has been announced by Showtime, which goes down on the 20th of August, and funnily enough, the card will take place at the Seminole Hard Rock and Casino in Hollywood, California. I think it's pretty apt considering who you have headlining. And the card is headlined by Adrien Broner versus Omar Figueroa Jr. Now, I'm assuming that this fight will be at welterweight. It's kind of apt that Adrien Broner is fighting in Hollywood, if you ask me. But nevertheless, listen, Adrien Broner, he came up, he was highly touted, highly hyped. He never lived up to his billing as the next Floyd Mayweather or anything like that. But, Broner at this stage of his career is a guy who is on his last legs, essentially, and really all he has left is his name value, and even that now is dwindling, But regardless, if you match Adrien Broner in the right fights, I still think he can make for some pretty fun evenings, and I believe this fight with Omar Figueroa Jr. could be one of those potential fun fights. Now, if you look at Adrien Broner, he's a guy who doesn't have his legs anymore. Well, he never really had his legs in the first place, and when he's matched up with high output pressure fighters, usually they develop into pretty good fights. We saw that with Adrian Granados, Marcus Maidana, Emmanuel Taylor, etc. So I think stylistically this one should be pretty good. Broner, obviously, is a guy who's very flat-footed, likes to fight in that side-on profile. He's usually pretty low output, so, he basically invites pressure on himself. And as I said, when he's fighting pressure fighters, that makes for a good fight because Broner can let his hands go on the inside. In fact, that's where I think Broner does his best work, on the inside and even at mid-range to a lesser extent. It's when Broner tries to box, his limitations are really out there, And yeah, Figueroa's a guy who likes to come forwards, he's got a two-handed attack, doesn't really jab his way in all that much, likes to lead off with hooks and he punches in bunches, volume, that sort of thing. Very aggressive guy, no back pedal, he's going to come straight forwards. Broner's going to be standing like a statue, so these two guys are going to meet in the middle of a ring, and I believe it's going to be a good fight. Both guys at this stage, like I said, are at the tail ends of their careers. Adrien Broner's not looked good in a long time. In fact, in his last fight, which he did officially win, I felt he actually lost against Giovanni Santiago, and Omar Figueroa Jr. is coming off back-to-back losses. He lost a comprehensive points decision to Yordenis Ugas, and last year he got stopped by the hard-punching Abel Ramos. So both guys are coming into this fight with bad form, and yeah, when you look at it, the loser of this fight will be in a terrible, terrible position. So if either one of these guys has any ambition of trying to get back to world level, they have to win this fight if they want to salvage their careers. And quite frankly, even the winner of this fight isn't much of a factor in the welterweight division. But stylistically, I believe that this fight should gel pretty well. I think it's going to be a fan-friendly affair. Doesn't really have any consequences on the welterweight division, but ultimately, I expect this one to be a fun fight, and I find it hard to call, considering where both guys are at in their careers. Broner hasn't looked good in quite some time, ill-disciplined, doesn't live his life outside the ring, and Omar Figueroa, the same could be said about him. He struggled with weight. He's not really a welterweight himself, just like Adrien Broner. Coming off two back-to-back defeats, not looked good in a while, so it's hard to see where this one's going to go, but I do kind of favour the higher output of Omar Figueroa, but ultimately I think this fight's going to come down to who wants it the most and who has more left in the tank. And honestly, I find it hard to tell with both of these guys, quite frankly. But yeah, all in all, I actually think this is a fun TV fight. It's a fan-friendly fight in my opinion. So yeah, main event, I'm actually all for it, quite frankly. I know Broner's not everybody's cup of tea, and I don't particularly like the guy either. But I think I think this fight's going to be relatively entertaining, if you ask me. Oh, and by the way, I just checked on BoxRec. Apparently this fight's going to be at super lightweight. I mean, I wouldn't... Listen, somebody's going to miss weight there, whether it's Adrien Broner or Omar Figueroa Jr. I can't see both of those guys making weight, considering their track records. But regardless, it's a good fight. But the undercard is actually pretty solid. It's a really good triple header. Now, of course, if we look at super lightweight, Josh Taylor has vacated a couple of his titles, the WBC and the WBA. On the undercard, the vacant WBA title will be contested between Batyar Akhmedov and Alberto Puello. Now, Akhmedov, I've seen a bit of Akhmedov fight in the past, and he's a good pressure fighter. Comes forwards, throws a lot of punches, decent power. He's actually he's 9-1 right now, and his only loss, he lost to Mario Barrios. Now, I felt he beat Mario Barrios. It was a close fight, but I felt he won. And Alberto Puello is an unbeaten Dominican fighter with a record of 20-0. But, you know, his record is extremely padded, so it's hard to really say how good he is. I'll be honest, I've never actually seen the guy fight before, so I'll need to do my due diligence on Alberto Puello. But, you know, I mean, on paper it looks evenly matched. It's for a vacant WBA title, so that could be fun. I mean, Akhmedov is always pretty fun to watch. You know, he comes to fight every single time, so that'll be interesting. And arguably the best fight on this card is Roger Gutierrez, the WBA super featherweight champion. He is fighting Hector Luis Garcia. Now, Roger Gutierrez is a good boxer puncher, pretty big for the weight. At like, I think he's like 5'9", something like that. Big puncher, coming off a couple of good wins over Rene Alvarado. And, you know, Hector Luis Garcia is coming off a really good win himself. He beat the hell out of Chris Colbert in his last fight. So, put these two guys together, I mean, I think this is going to be a really good fight. Hector Luis Garcia, in that fight with Chris Colbert, applied some really good pressure. He dropped Chris Colbert, hurt him multiple times, had Chris Colbert running, worked the body really well. He's also quite tricky out of that southpaw stance. You know, this is the orthodox versus the southpaw, the boxer puncher versus the pressure fighter. Both guys can bang a bit as well. I think this is going to be a really good fight, you know. I think this is going to be a really good fight. So yeah, overall, I actually quite like this card. I mean, I've not really got any complaints here. It's a pretty well-matched card. I think Broner versus Figueroa will be fan-friendly. If not, you know, it doesn't really have much consequence for world-level boxing. But it's a fun fight. And, you know, Gutierrez versus Garcia, really good fight. And Akhmedov versus Puello, it could be a good fight. So, yeah, overall, I actually quite like this card. I'm not complaining. What about you guys? I'll be interested to hear your thoughts below. Been your guy Delboy. Peace.